go. Why, hello, YouTube and the interweb. It's nice to see you again. I'm Joshua Montgomery, the CEO of Mycroft AI, and today I'm in our Lawrence production facility. I'm doing an Ask Me Anything about our future roadmap for the Mycroft project. So behind me, you can see a fun 3D printer where we print prototypes for the Mark I. Actually, stepping off camera for a second, you can see here some of the latest and greatest prototypes of the Mark II, where this piece came off of the printer behind me. You can see the internal structure and whatnot. This is one of the outer pieces for the new Mark II. And then this right here is the first mock-up of the resonating chamber for the speakers, and then of course the faceplate for it. Those were printed back there on the back. Behind me you can see BD, who's responsible for doing assembly and customer support for all the Mycroft units. I think he's got 16 Mark I's to ship today, so that makes it a good day. And then of course we've got a full wood shop here on site, 3-axis CNC, laser cutters, fused deposition printer in addition to the SLA, PCB fabrication facilities so that we can reflow circuit boards and do a bunch of other work like that. So this is our office in Lawrence, Kansas. This is actually where things got started. The whole purpose behind the Mycroft project on day one was to voice enable this space, which we've got distracted and haven't yet done, but the idea being to be able to turn on the lights, turn on and off the air compressor, be able to operate all the equipment, control the video screen in the lounge over there, all via voice. And our goal was to just make something that was ubiquitous that anybody could speak to. And when we went looking to see if anybody would let us, if there were any tech out there to let us do it, what we found was Siri, which typical of Apple products, was closed off, proprietary, and we couldn't access it. Google Assistant was in its early days, and then actually we never even heard of Amazon Echo before we got started. In fact, when I used to go and talk about Mycroft to other people, what I would start the conversation with, it's this little speaker, and it sits in the corner and it listens to you talk, and it does stuff on your behalf. And they would look at me like I was insane. I actually saw an article recently that talks a little bit about Amazon and some of their future plans, and one of the things that this author was speculating about was that Amazon was going to build a home robot to voice enable, that you could not only have the voice technology, but also have the ability to manipulate the local environment. And simultaneously, I was reading about a Silicon Valley startup that had recently failed, that had spent a year pursuing financing to build a home robot, right? That was, once again, voice enabled and did things in the home, and couldn't find a single VC in the Valley. They talked to 200 VCs that was interested in funding them. And I imagine that's a really similar experience to what my friends at Universal Computing up in Toronto, or my friend Jonathan Nostrom at Ivy went through when 2 or 3 years before the Amazon Echo came out. Those guys were out hustling money. The guys built the Ubi up in Toronto, which is kind of an early smart speaker. And in both cases, I think that the company has struggled to get investors to see their vision. And my guess is, knowing Jonathan and having spent some time with him, it wasn't Jonathan's ability to communicate the message that was the problem. He's a 500 graduate, very well-spoken, very intelligent man. My guess is that the VC on the other side of the table probably didn't have as many brain cells as they needed to see the future the way that Jonathan saw it. And as a result, there were some pretty significant challenges surrounding fundraising and putting together the type of financial resources that are necessary to do a project of this scope. And so, our friends at Amazon did a Super Bowl commercial at the beginning of 2016 where they really unveiled the Echo in a serious way with Alec Baldwin as a representative. And all of a sudden, voice is like the hottest thing in Silicon Valley, and VCs all have a voice thesis where they're talking about making investments in voice, although they're making, in many cases, crummy investments, or in a lot of cases, you'll see a firm that has a strong voice thesis that has made no investments in a voice company. And so I kind of wonder if Amazon's going to roll out a robot and just kill it, like ship umpteen million units globally, and all of a sudden, everybody in Silicon Valley is going to have a home robotics thesis, and the guys at the startup that Wired was writing about will be like, we were doing that like 2 years before Amazon. Where was our financing? So anyway, I have digressed. That was me talking about why people didn't understand it when we got started, the whole voice-enabled thing. Clearly now everybody understands it, which is why, we've been really lucky. We were in the right place at the right time with the right piece of technology, and we very much have the right team and the right community. And it feels really good to be sitting in this chair today, looking around me and seeing the work that's being done on Mycroft, seeing the advances in the technology. I got the first samples back from the new speech synthesis engine, Mimic 2 model today. Actually, that's not true. I got a set of samples a few days ago that were really, really bad. It sounded like some kind of nightmare that you would hear in the movie with like voices whispering in the background. Like it was crazy bad. It was so bad that we didn't share them with the community. Like they were really bad. And just a few minutes ago, I got the response from the next generation of training. We've since the first voices we got, we have a couple Lambda quad machine learning rigs that we've now deployed for Keith, and he's been able to run a lot more steps. And the new voice, awesome. I know we were supposed to have them deployed on April 30th, but we're not quite there yet. We've had some trouble getting as much data as we needed, as fast as we needed it, but now we've got the data. We've got 4 hours of audio, 4 hours of voice, and it sounds awesome. When we get to like 6, 8, 10, 20 hours of voice with the voice, Danny, the voice artist, the new British voice is going to sound fantastic. It's really going to sound good. And unlike our competitors who have trained men everywhere to yell at their female smart speaker, our smart speaker is male. No misogyny here at Mycroft. So anyway, let's move on and talk a little bit about the roadmap coming up. I actually sent both some investors who are looking at writing us a check for our Series A, as well as my team, an update yesterday on milestones and what we're looking for from both the team and the community between now and August. So I can walk through that. By August, our goal is to have Mycroft be feature complete. And by feature complete, I do not mean like every skill be perfect. I do not mean the having full coverage of skills, the way that the proprietary stacks do. Feature complete has a very different meaning for me. For me, feature complete means all of the basic core technologies of the Mycroft stack are working, okay? And the data feedback loops that make the machine learning grow in intelligence over time are closed. And many of you in our community have already reached into our precise wake word tagger and have tagged some of the precise queries that our community's been donating. For those of you that haven't, please take a moment, create an account at home.mycroft.ai. When you log in, up at the top it says tagging. If you click that, it'll load the precise tagger, and all it is effectively hot dog, not a hot dog, maybe it's a hot dog. I mean, that's really what it is. So it's either hey Mycroft, not hey Mycroft, or Mycroft, as the wake, the wake word, the person just said Mycroft, or they said Minecraft, or they said Microsoft. If it's a total miss, that's not Mycroft. If it's right on, so hey Mycroft, boom, you hit the right on button. But if it's half the phrase, so hey Mike would get almost, or if they said it twice, hey Mycroft, it didn't work. Hey Mycroft a second time, and both samples are in there, you'll mark it as almost as a duplicate. So it's super easy. Anybody can learn to do it in like 3 minutes. My kids have been spending time working in that. But that's an example of what we're trying to build, a machine learning feedback loop. And there's a blog post on our site that if you haven't read it, I'd encourage you to read, how to build a strong AI, an AI that interacts just like a person where people can't tell what they're talking to. The answer is building these machine learning feedback loops so that people use the system. By using it, they generate the data. The community tags the data, categorizes it, adds the intelligence to the data. It gets fed back into the machine learning loop, and machine learning software, and then fed back to the community for use. And so you create this cycle where you're creating, tagging, categorizing, training, feeding the technology back, creating the data, tagging, and over time it gets smarter and smarter and smarter as more data pours into that loop and the community engages with it. So Precise, our wake word tagger, is our first instance of that because it is such a simple model. It's either hey Mycroft or not hey Mycroft, or some partial version of that. So the community's done that. This morning we were at 49,000 tagged utterances. That means that's 49,000 instances of hey Mycroft that people have confirmed not once but twice is accurate. That's been fed to our model, and if you log into that, you can see the tag at the top. It says progress. If you click the progress button, it'll actually show you a chart showing how accurate the wake word tagger has become over time. So anyway, so we're doing that for Precise already, and that's deployed, and we're really super happy with the scenario. In fact, we're happy enough that we've now started to release some money to our partner Workaround. For those of you who don't know, Workaround is a company that sends work to refugees from Syria, Eritrea, other places around the world that have strife, Yemen, that have strife and conflict where people are leaving their homes. In many cases, they're going to countries where they're not allowed to work. And so what Workaround does is it creates work for folks who are in that situation where if they have a smartphone or they have a tablet or they have a laptop that's connected to the internet, they can do this work and get paid a fair living wage for where they're staying. So they're not being taken advantage of, they're not working at below market rates, they're able to actually feed their families at the rates that Workaround is paying. And for a company like us, that allows us to send simple work like wake word tagging to somebody who is in dire need so that person can earn a living and feed their family and do a good deed out there in the world. So anyway, the Precise stuff is working well enough that we're now releasing some of the work to paid trainers. The idea there is eventually there'll be a balance between volunteer and paid. We're thinking it's right around 20,000 volunteer utterances unlock the money that we need to pay to have 5,000 paid utterances done. And by doing that, we get the community continues to be involved, but it gives the community a strong reason to come tag queries. They're not taking work away from people in need. We need to have the community involved in the process. But when we reach a certain point, it allows us to release some finances so that we can pay folks in need to tag utterances and create work for people in the AI economy. So that's super exciting. But anyway, Precise is working well. Okay, but it's only one of several feedback loops. One of the other feedback loops we're building is called Persona, where we take missed queries. So if somebody says, what's your favorite color? And the AI can't answer, that would get fed to the Persona engine. The community then decides on an answer. Is it blue? Is it green? Is it orange? I don't know. But somebody in the community makes a suggestion. Somebody else in the community validates it. In the future, there may be some kind of voting process with that. We're not quite sure. But that gets fed back into the machine learning engine. And the next time somebody asks the same question, the AI is able to answer. Today, we're doing that for subjective things like favorite color or favorite sports team or whatever. Eventually, that'll also include objective data, so that we'll build tools that allow you to go out and grab a data source from Wikidata, for example. So a user might ask, how tall was Abraham Lincoln, right? And the AI might not be able to answer. That gets fed into Persona. Somebody in the Persona community says, oh, Wikidata's got a table that has the height of all the US presidents in it. They plug that in, and in the future, the AI can answer not just for Abraham Lincoln, but also for all the presidents of the United States. And because we are building an international community, also international presidents. So if you want to know how tall Mr. Trudeau or Mr. Macron are, Chris, you can ask the AI that question. And so anyway, so for me, feature complete means all of those loops are up and operational. The community is generating data. The community is volunteering to share that data. The community is tagging that data, and that data is being used to improve the machine learning algorithms that answer questions from the AI. At the same time, we need to have a very high quality voice, and I just mentioned that I just got the first samples of the new Mimic 2, and they're awesome. And we need to have the tools in place so that we can do skills arbitration or skills skill disambiguation, arbitration. Amazon's calling it skill arbitration. They're bigger, their vocabulary will probably stick. I would call it disambiguation, although that's a hard word to say. The idea there being, if I say play white noise, right? There are two potential answers to that question. There are actually multiple, right? It might launch the Pandora skill and play my white noise playlist on Pandora. It might launch Spotify and play the band white noise, or it might launch a white noise skill, right, and actually play, you know, white noise static through the speakers so that I can sort of waves or whatever through the speakers so I can sleep. So you know, one of the things that we're looking to build is an auto test function that allows us to at a minimum identify when a phrase might be ambiguous across multiple skills, and then begin building tools that disambiguate there. Now, my guess is, and not my guess, the answer to how to do that is by using machine learning algorithms, which get fed back into our feedback loop. We have a plan to get that done. It's on the development roadmap somewhere, probably after the August that we're talking about. So between now and August, we have a few things we want to get done. Precise wake word tagger, we want to have it finished. We want to be able to collect data, tag data, feed it back to the engine, feed the engine back into the devices and to the instances of Mycroft out there. Good news, it's done. It's finished. It's working. We're about halfway there to getting the Hey Mycroft wake word done. When we get that done, we will go ahead and begin adding additional wake words. Hey, BD, can you go kill that, please? Or connect it to the interweb, one or the other? Sorry, I just kicked a device over there that's in testing. So we'll have Hey Mycroft done shortly. After that, we will begin working on a new wake word. I'm open to suggestions. Right now, I'm thinking it's Trinity. Because we do have Amy Schweppe reading a female American voice, and it'd be great to have a female American voice for the Mycroft stack named Trinity. But obviously, there's other opportunities there. So the next item after the precise wake word tagging that we want to have complete is to have the deep speech engine be the default STT engine for the speech to text engine for the platform. And the reason we want to do that is right now we're taking all the queries from the users, we bring them into our server, and then we aggregate them, we mix them together, right? And we send them to a third party to be tagged. And that third party software feeds us back an answer. Now, there's no way using the network paths and the authentication paths that we're using to figure out that you are the source of that data, whatever random end user you are. But you know, if you say your social security number into the device, that's going to get sent to the STT engine, and of course, anybody who's reviewing those logs would have access to your personal information, and that's something that we want to protect. And so the best way to do that is for us to move the speech to text process onto Mycroft equipment and then nuke the logs for people who don't opt in to share data, so that we don't keep the data at all. We've been working very closely with Michael and Kelly and the Mozilla Deep Speech team in Berlin for 6 months or a year now. Those guys have made fantastic progress. If you haven't already, go and visit their project at voice.mozilla.org. You can contribute your voice to that project in like 10 seconds. You know, just read 3 phrases, hit go, and your voice will be included in the training set. You can also review other people's contributions to validate that they're accurate. So that team has built a speech-to-text engine that is equal to or better than humans with some corpuses of text. And let me highlight that last phrase: some corpuses of text. So if a user is using the technology in the same way that they contributed the data, which means sitting in front of a computer screen, reading the text from the screen, it is as accurate or more accurate than a human at interpreting that speech, which is fantastic. That is the first step. The issue is if the user is using a smart speaker in a kitchen with their kids yelling in the background, the TV on, and they have a thick foreign accent. Deep speech today doesn't have any data like that to train on so that we can improve the technology. So deep speech really relies on very, very clean data. And as a result, it's not as useful as we would have liked it to have been for a smart speaker. Because of course people use the smart speakers or they use the Raspberry Pi in environments that have noise, they have accents, you know, there's a variety of different things that impact the quality of the speech. And so, you know, we made deep speech available to developers March 31st, like we told folks we would. However, to enable it, you have to go through the CLI, the command line interface. We will be providing shortly, I think, an option for that, but because of the lack of training data, it's not as good as the third-party STT yet. Now, the awesome thing is we just finished negotiations with Mozilla. In fact, BD just scanned and sent the contract over to Mozilla, over to our team, to plumb in Mycroft's backend to the Mozilla deep speech data system. So when you opt in, if you don't opt into the Mycroft stack, we don't keep squat, right? And if we do keep squat, it will last. We will keep if we do keep data on you, we will keep the data just as long as I don't know that we're keeping the data. Okay. As far as I know, we are not. I've told the guys not to. I haven't personally inspected the servers, but I'm confident that they've implemented our goal. They've implemented their instructions. If for whatever reason we find a log somewhere, or we realize that there's a buffer somewhere that's keeping data that shouldn't be, it'll last just as long as we don't know about it, right? So if you don't opt in, we don't keep your data. Our goal is ideally perfect privacy for end users. If people opt in, though, so you opt in, you go check the little checkbox on the thing and say, hey, I want to share my data with the community, and you begin using the technology, those utterances will get sent to the Mozilla Deep Speech team, where they will be transcribed, verified, and fed into the deep speech engine so that it improves over time with use in the real world. And as far as I know, we're the only deployed technology that's using deep speech in a serious way. And I hope that they find other partners, because more the merrier, and more data we generate, the better for everybody in terms of building accuracy. But anyway, that's something that needs to be built. So deep speech is available, but the plumbing between Mycroft and Mozilla has yet to be built. The good news is we've got the negotiation and the legal out of the way, so we can actually do it. And eventually that will not only be the English utterances, but utterances in other languages. So the next big milestone is we want to make sure that the natural language understanding engine, so that's the engine that takes a phrase of text, you know, turn the lights on in the kitchen, for example, and converts it into an intent. So the turn the lights on in the kitchen, the intent would be activate IoT skill, object, lights, location, kitchen, toggle position on, and then it executes a piece of code that runs up the IoT skill and goes out and turns on the IoT device. So the NLU engine, you know, that's a very simple intent. You know, that's called a known entity rules-based system. So it knows that an object is lights, the location is kitchen, the toggle position is on. That has lists of those things. So our adapt engine, that's how it works. We also have a Pedacious engine, which is a machine learning engine, which takes example phrases and trains a dialogue engine to understand what those phrases mean effectively. And so each skill within our framework has a long, long list of all the phrases that are supposed to activate that skill and data abstractions to abstract the data from that. That gets trained in a machine learning engine, and then the machine learning engine spits out a JSON for the intent. So both of those things are working. Our developers in many cases are using Pedacious, in some cases they're using Adapt, in some cases I think they're mixing them. But the piece that we haven't built, the piece that's on the roadmap today, is the piece that takes queries and allows us from the real world, people who are using the technology, and allows us as a community to categorize them and put them with the appropriate skill. So if I say, turn the lights on in the kitchen, works great. I say, make it brighter where I cook, okay? It has no idea what to do with that. Brighter is not an object. Cook, it may be an object, but it's an activity, right? It doesn't communicate to an AI that uses known entities what the heck it's supposed to do. But if we feed it into Pedacious, and we feed enough examples like that into Pedacious, so make it darker where I park, make it bright where I mow the lawn, whatever it is, over time, with enough phrases, the machine learning engine is able to suss out exactly what the intent was from the user. The thing is a developer who's developing a skill today has to imagine all of the potential phrases the user might use, which of course, developers have fantastic imaginations, don't get me wrong, but it's very difficult to have a comprehensive imagination, right? Unless you're maybe Jim Henson. And so the piece that we want to build between now and August is the piece that allows us to automatically take missed intent. So make it brighter where I cook. That gets fed into the engine we're calling persona, okay? And somebody in the persona community grabs that and says, oh, this is what the guy meant. He meant turn the lights on in the kitchen. So I'm going to grab the IoT skill and I'm going to drag this phrase over there, however we build the interface. And next time that Pedacious intent gets trained, you know, it'll know what to do with the user's utterance and be able to go out there and turn the lights on the way the users intended. So that is one of the pieces that we're looking to get done, is to build the plumbing that allows us to capture data from people who opt in, only from people who opt in, like stop that a couple times, and feed it to the community and then on to the machine learning engine so that the technology can improve. So the first part's done. Adaptive Pedacious have been in production for a while, but the second piece, the plumbing, isn't quite done yet. So next item is the company's Mimic speech synthesis engine. That's our new text to speech. So text comes in, audio comes out. We want to be a fully deployed. We're going to deploy that with one default voice and one paid voice. Okay, so you know, as much as I would like to Richard Stallman Mycroft, right? Free to everybody. Free software means no price. Free software also means freedom to use it. You know, nobody should ever charge for anything. It all should be given away because there's zero incremental cost and it's all knowledge. Ideologically, I'm aligned with that, right? But ultimately, BD's got to pay his mortgage, right? You know, we have a great team of full-time people. We have a bunch of server infrastructure that needs to live. We have to operate in the real world where money is a thing. You know, there are those that would argue that patronage would be a great way to fund the project. And you know what? If you have a patron out there who's got $10 or $15 million, which is what it would take to really take this to the next level, please connect me with them. You know, send me an email, founders@mycroft.ai. You'll find me, and I'm happy to reach out to that patron. But since patronage is few and far between in a world where money's not free, we have to develop mechanisms that allow us to both be open and make our technology available, but also pay the bills. And so for us, one of the pieces that we think has value to our community is enhanced voices. So voices that sound great, voices that might be celebrity voices. We're giving some serious thought to that. You know, voices that might have an accent that you like. If you want to talk to somebody from Georgia, we can add a Georgia accent, you know, a female Georgia voice, and we'll call her Samantha, right? So there's some options there. So when we deploy the Mimic 2 engine, we're going to continue with the British male voice, partially because it sounds cool, but actually there's a lot of ideology there. The concept that, you know, in this new Me Too world, like in a world where we're actually starting to pay attention to women and their role in the world and how they're treated by, especially here in the technology space, it just seems to me to be a bad idea to deploy a voice assistant where you yell at the woman, you know? And in many cases, you know, I'd be very curious as to what Amazon's data set looks like surrounding people screaming at Alexa. But I'm going to go ahead and say that there's some misogynistic, nasty stuff in there, right? And so the idea that we would use a male voice and a British male voice, like have Bond come back out of the speaker and punch you in the throat if you're mean to it, appeals to me. So the default voice will continue to be British male. The default name will continue to be Mycroft, Sherlock's older brother and the smarter of the two brothers, for the foreseeable future. Enhanced voices, though, will be available. We're starting with the female voice. That's being generated by our design lead, Derek Schweppy's lovely wife, Amy. She's been recording now for a couple weeks. We're getting really close to having a comprehensive data set. And when that's done, we'll be deploying a high-quality American female voice for people who choose to become patrons of the project. So that is on the horizon. If you had asked me 2 hours ago how I felt about reaching this milestone between now and August, I'd have told you I don't feel very good about it. And then my CTO, Steve, sent me a sample of the new Mimic model, which I mentioned earlier, that really made me feel wonderful about where we are with the speech synthesis. It sounds really good. It's awesome. And then finally, by 8/6, so August 6th, I've asked the team to build internationalization tools. One of the things that we're doing next year is taking Mycroft global. So if you look around our little shop here in Lawrence, Kansas, I mean, it's a beautiful facility. It's large. We got a lot of really smart and capable people working both here in Kansas City. We've got folks as far away as Stockholm and as far away the other direction as Melbourne. But it only speaks English, right? And it really doesn't speak English broadly. It only speaks really Midwestern American English, the same type of English I speak, which I'm told people from England say makes me sound dumb. So there we go. It doesn't really fully understand thickly accented English, so English from maybe India. I don't know if Kathy has trouble down under in Australia, but my guess is it doesn't work as well down there as it does for us here, because of course this is where the data set for a lot of the STT engine came from. And so the goal for this year and for this sprint and for milestones between now and August is to develop the tools that allow us to take Mycroft into other languages. And those tools are primarily text-based, although we do need folks to start yelling at Mycroft in other languages. Mozilla is going to be helping with this on the 15th of May, I believe. If it's not the 15th of May, will somebody please correct me in the comments? Mozilla is doing a global sprint around adding new languages to the Deep Speech project. If you have a language that you want to make sure survives, okay, so it's pretty clear that English is going to survive, Mandarin and Cantonese will survive, French, German, whatnot. But there are a lot of languages that have small populations, Navajo, Icelandic, Afrikaner, and a host of other languages out there. And in some cases, the populations that are speaking these languages are beginning to become very, very, very small. And so if you speak a language where maybe the population that speaks your language is a couple thousand people, maybe it's one town or one community or one village, the tools that we are building should help to capture that language for posterity, both to understand that language, to speak that language, and through our intent parsing engine and eventually the dialogue engine, to be able to speak to an AI that speaks that language. To be able to speak your native language, which maybe 1,000 people speak, but also have that simultaneously translated into Mandarin or English or one of the more broadly spoken languages, is definitely something that's on the horizon using the data set we're building. So if you have an interest in supporting international languages, I strongly recommend that you participate in the Global Sprint on the 15th, and then certainly look for me next year when I come through your country so we can talk about how you might contribute there. The international language tools will be a series of online tools that allow you to translate from any language Mycroft speaks to any language. So if the two languages you speak are French and Swahili, once we get the French data set built, you should be able to go from French to Swahili and begin building prompts and dialogues, begin reading phrases for the speech understanding, tagging phrases for the speech to text. And then, of course, if the technology is going to speak your language, we're going to need, the new voices, we're doing them at 4 hours. We might get it down less than that. I think we're going to take the first voice up to maybe 20 hours of audio, but the eventual goal is a very small data set. So 2 or 3 hours of somebody speaking using specific phrases into the computer, creating these samples, we feed them into the machine learning engine, and boom, magic, machine learning. The technology is able to go from text to whatever language we happen to be supporting. One of the things about big tech is so big, right, that in order for them to grow their business, they have to get into big markets. And so, the last I checked, and don't quote me, but I think the Google STT engine spoke about 80 languages, right? There are more than 7,000 languages spoken globally. And Google is supporting 80 of them because of those are the 80 biggest markets. And with the size of their market cap, with the amount of revenue that they have to generate to be successful, with the amount of revenue they have to generate to grow, building technologies in niche markets, it doesn't make sense for them, right? And they're a business. They're not there to not be evil. They're there to make money, right? And unless they convert to a B Corp, they're legally required to only pay attention to making money. Yeah. In our case, we're a bit of a different animal. I think the final destination for Mycroft is as a B Corp, so as a public benefit corporation that really is here to support the community, not to make money. I mean, making money is important because you have to pay people and whatnot, but doesn't have to be the only goal of a company. And B Corp structure allows you to do that. And so as a company like that, it's more important to me to be all-inclusive, to support everyone, to build as many languages into the technology as possible. And so if we can get to 7,100 global languages, I don't see any reason we can't, let's do it. Let's do it as a community. So the tools that we're looking to build by August will allow anybody who speaks initially English and whatever the other language is to begin translating the prompts, to begin contributing speech, to begin contributing phrases, and start that process. We'll probably build a scoreboard of some kind that shows, on a scale of 0 to 100, how far along we are in each language. And then the question becomes, who in Iceland wants to make Icelandic available as a language for automated speech recognition and speech synthesis, and wants to build an AI that represents Iceland, right? An AI that writes a book sometimes during its life, an AI that understands the dark of winter, an AI that has the ferocity of a people founded by of a nation founded by Vikings, right? Because it only takes 1 or 2 interested people in that country to translate it from English to Icelandic. And then the language and the persona and the ability to synthesize in that language all become captured in perpetuity, right? They become available for everyone because, of course, our data sets are open. And as the machine learning stuff improves in quality, those data sets will become more and more important as people use this technology in new and novel ways. So we're looking to have those tools built by August. August 6th is when we leave, and actually Iceland's the first destination. And then after that, we'll be coming to a lot of communities around the world. In terms of broad cities that we're going to be visiting, we're visiting our friends in Reykjavik. We'll be visiting Amsterdam. After that, we'll be in Berlin, then Paris, then Madrid, then Lisbon and Barcelona, Athens, Rome. Then we're going to head across the equator down to South Africa to visit Johannesburg. We'll be up in Mumbai and then on to Singapore. Then we go down under. We'll be in Sydney and Auckland, followed by a trip to Fiji to talk about Polynesian languages. After that, we're headed up to Taipei, Seoul, and Tokyo to talk about tonal languages and how we can support those. And then on to San Juan, Buenos Aires, and Santiago to look at a different flavor of Spanish from Castilian Spanish. And in each one of those destinations, we'll be branching out to speak to communities in the surrounding area. So when we're in Greece, with some luck, we'll be able to hop across the Aegean Sea and talk to folks who might speak Czech or might speak Slovak. The same when we're in in Paris. Maybe we get out to London and visit some folks who speak Welsh, and maybe as far as Ireland, to look at Gaelic, and so on and so forth. So we're super excited to be taking the trip, and the goal of the trip is twofold. Number one, we want to make sure that we have an international community that is supporting the Mycroft idea globally. That somebody who wants to deploy a voice assistant and lives in Moscow can build a voice assistant that speaks Russian, using tools that have been community developed and work extremely well in other languages, so that they can apply that voice assistant for their special use case. The same as somebody who speaks Swahili, who wants to build a voice assistant, maybe for a project in the mobile market in Africa, will have access to that technology. And we want to have a global community that's supporting that and engaged and working together. One of the things in this world, I think, that divides us is language. That we don't speak the same language, and in many cases, those languages confine or inform our thinking. And so having voice technologies that allow us to do simultaneous translation, that allow us to collaborate and interact using the most natural form of human communication makes a lot of sense. And so we're looking forward to building that global community over the course of the next year. Looks like I have a few more minutes. I might cut this off early because I'm feeling repetitive today. But anyway. So some of the skills we talked last time was skills development, review, and deployment process. We've made a lot of progress there. I think we could involve the community a little bit more. But as of 1802, those of you who didn't get the email, you definitely look. If you've already built a skill, you need to do a little bit of rework to pull it into 1802. We've implemented some auto test procedures to help prevent skills from colliding on various different intents. And we're requiring new skills coming in to have a certain structure and a certain layout so that they all play nicely together. We've had some instances where skills were stepping on each other, and it creates a bad user experience. So laying that process out and then basically setting it in stone is important. Clearly, there's a community role to be played there, and I think we already are engaging the community in a lot of ways. But that's been a big rock for 1808. The custom wake words is a big rock. Actually, we have that, once we're done with the first 100,000 with Hey Mycroft, we move on to the next one. And once that one's done, we move on to the next one. So if you've got a wake word you're excited about, whether it's Samantha or Trinity or Jarvis, get in there and help us finish the Hey Mycroft wake word, and then raise your hand and say, we want to build this next. So custom wake words is a big piece for us by August 8th or August of this year, and it looks like we're on track for that. Backend account and metrics management. We made a lot of progress with that. So Chris Bayer joining us has been a huge boost. So Chris comes from the BATS trading platform. BATS is a stock exchange located in Kansas City. He's got mad expertise in building high availability backend systems and has already reduced the cost of running our backend by a factor of 5. So awesome work, Chris. Chris will be working with Mateus, and we may be making a couple of additional hires to really flesh out the backend system and to better track metrics for exactly how people are using the technology. Obviously, we'll only be tracking metrics for folks who opt in and continue to foot stomp that. Deep speech integration, that's actually done. So you can use deep speech as the default engine, even though it's still not as high quality as some of the third-party engines. If you're more interested in privacy than quality, the deep speech engine is where to be. Certainly the best way to improve that quality is to hit opt-in and donate your data. The more data with your personal voice that's in the deep speech data set, the easier it will be for the AI to understand it. So there's a really strong incentive, especially if you have a thick accent, if you come from a social demographic that's not very well represented, get in there and contribute at voice.mozilla.org. Put in 2 or 3 hours of audio. It doesn't take that long. You could do it in an afternoon, and that data will get pulled into the deep speech engine, and all of a sudden, magically, you'll find that it understands your voice really, really well. If you rehearse the phrases before reading them on the screen, so instead of reading it, rehearse it a couple times and speak it naturally, that engine will pick your language up better in the future. So that's an important trick. Mimic 2 integration. So Mimic 2 is the new speech synthesis engine. We're now getting samples back from that. So the next step will be to fully integrate that into the stack. It's early May. You know, it wouldn't surprise me if they had that done by the end of the month. Certainly by the end of June. So that's an exciting milestone. And then auto testing is the other big rock, and I talked about it a little earlier. But building unit tests throughout the software stack, that's a professional software development thing. I would argue, there are many people who would argue about this. I would argue fast and dirty up front, get it working and start getting data and figuring out how users want it before you build a comprehensive unit testing suite. I think that probably there are watchers out there who just had like a heart attack. That's not how you build software. It is when you're in startup mode. Maybe it's not how you build it at a university. Maybe it's not how you build it at a big corp, but it's how you build it when you've got to build something fast and it needs to work before you run out of money, okay? I think we're past that point. Like, we have adequate financing. We've been blessed by the support of the community. We've been blessed by the support of some patient, capable investors. And so building unit testing into the software is an important milestone or important goal for us to reach between now and August. That allows us to deploy high quality software and to identify problems before they become problems. Last but not least, you know, I think one of the important milestones between here and the 1808 release isn't really a technical milestone, it's a community milestone. Today, we crossed 17,000 users at Mycroft. That's a pretty awesome number. I mean, the fact that that many people are interested in creating an account, are interested in interacting with the technology is phenomenal. Between now and August, and in the next 3 to 4 months, I'd love to see that number break 25,000. And so, you know, if you have a friend who's interested in voice, who's been talking about their Echo, or is maybe building skills in the Amazon community, you have a friend who works at a company that might be looking at doing some kind of a voice integration for a product. If you have a developer conference you're speaking at, you're excited about what we're doing here at Mycroft, share our story. Like, let people know why voice is important. The technology we're building here at Mycroft, not the stuff at Amazon, not the stuff at Google, not the stuff at Microsoft. That stuff's all vertical channels. They're going to continue to own that stuff within their corporation, right? Like, they're building what they're building and they're doing a good job of it, right? Their software is not going to get integrated into everything. Because Mycroft is open, because companies and individuals can use it the way that they want to use it, because they can customize it, both the wake word and the skills, and then the user experience and the personality. Mycroft's going to get built into pretty much everything. If it runs a Linux kernel or it runs embedded, there's a really good chance that a decade from now, it'll have some piece of the Mycroft stack in it. And that's super, super cool. And so you here today who are working on the software, who have sat through a 1 hour Ask Me Anything to learn more about where we're headed as a community, you, the person who, you know, even if you just interacted with the stack a couple times on an Ubuntu desktop and said, hey, that's cool, you are contributing in a significant way to something that has a significant role to play in the future of technology. Share that. Help us to grow the community to 25,000 to 50,000 to 75,000. It's very much a more the merrier situation. You know, how many languages can we support? How many users can we support? How broadly can we make this technology? How many people who can't read today can a voice-enabled Mycroft stack teach to read tomorrow, right? How many people who can't see today will have global access to the internet and access to information in a completely transparent way because of the Mycroft stack? How many people, you know, will get in a self-driving car and speak to a Mycroft-enabled voice assistant to tell them, hey, I'm headed to the hospital where I'm going to have my first kid. Take me to the hospital, right? A lot. And that's super, super exciting, and we're looking forward to having you in our community. If you've already made a contribution, thank you. If you have yet to make a contribution, reach in. Even if you just go into home.mycroft.ai and tag one precise query, just one, that's a contribution. and we'd love to have you as a contributor to the project. So I'm going to step off. There was in theory going to be some kind of a feedback mechanism during this thing where I'd be able to like live interact with the community, but they kind of stranded me on a desert island here in New Orleans today, and they're all in Kansas City building awesome software. So I'm going to punch out. I really do appreciate you taking the time to pay attention to our project today. I really appreciate your contribution. I really appreciate you as the user. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I'm looking forward to the next time we connect. Thank you.